Prince Daemon Targaryen, the rogue prince, as depicted in HBO's House of the Dragon. His life was defined by both glory and tragedy, forever bonded with his fierce dragon, Caraxes. Prince Daemon Targaryen was a man of contrasts, a legendary dragon rider, both loved and reviled in equal measure. As the younger brother to King Viserys I and grandson of the old King Jaehaerys, Daemon's bloodline destined him for greatness. Yet his restless heart and fiery spirit set him apart. From his youth, he chased adventure and danger, forging his name with blood and fire alongside his fearsome red dragon, Caraxes. Their bond was the stuff of myth, dragon and rider, both volatile, battle-scarred, and hungry for glory. This is the tale of Daemon and Caraxes, a saga of courage and defiance, love and loss, that soars on dragon wings and ends in heartbreaking tragedy. Bravery and battles. Daemon Targaryen's bravery was proven in war. In 106 AC, eager to prove himself, he joined Lord Corlys Velaryon in an ambitious campaign to free the Stepstones from the pirates of the Triarchy. Daemon was eager for the gold and glory that victory in war would bring him. Riding Caraxes, he waged a grueling 3-year war over the islands, personally cutting down countless enemies. In single combat, Daemon slew Craghas, crabfeeder Drahar, beheading the dreaded tyrant and ending his reign of terror. Victory earned Daemon a crown of his own. The triumphant prince styled himself King of the Stepstones and the Narrow Sea, a rebel king on a foreign shore. Yet this rogue king did not cling to his makeshift throne. In a grand gesture of reconciliation, Daemon flew Caraxes back to King's Landing after years away and offered his crown to his brother Viserys at a great tourney. For a moment, the warrior prince knelt and two brothers were reconciled in laughter and feasting. But peace never lasted long in Daemon's turbulent life. Within half a year, his wild antics and scandalous passions saw him exiled from court once more. Daemon's response was to seek battle yet again. For the Dragon Knight Prince only felt truly alive amid the forge of war. Throughout the brutal civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons, Daemon's courage burned bright. By this time, the rogue prince had become one of the most experienced warriors of his generation, wielding the Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister and flying into battle on Caraxes. He boldly took Harrenhal, the huge, haunted castle, without a drop of blood spilled, simply by descending from the sky. Landing Caraxes atop the blackened towers, Daemon captured Harrenhal from its castellan without conflict. Enemies fled before the shadow of Caraxes, for they knew the Blood Wyrm and his rider were as death come from above. Daemon's greatest battle would also be his last. In the waning days of the Civil War, he faced his most formidable foe, Prince Aemond One-Eye riding Vargar, the oldest and mightiest living dragon. Daemon, undaunted, challenged Aemond to single combat, dragon against dragon, uncle against nephew, above the God's Eye Lake. He showed no fear, even knowing Vargar was nearly 5 times Caraxes' size. On the 22nd day of the 5th moon of 130 AC, as the sun reddened the sky, the two dragons met in fiery wrath. Fisherfolk below saw shadows circling and heard roars that made the very clouds glow red with flame. Caraxes, cunning and battle-hard, struck first. Cloaked by the setting sun, on Aemond's blind side, the Blood Wyrm dove like a thunderbolt and slammed into Vargar. The dragons grappled in the air, tearing at each other amid a storm of flames, until, locked together, they plunged from the sky into the lake's cold waters. In that dire moment, Daemon Targaryen showed fearless resolve beyond regard for his own life. A complex soul. Daemon's valor in battle was undeniable, but so too was his complicated nature. In life he was an audacious rogue prince and adventurer, a man of contradictions who seemed composed of good and evil in equal measure. To some in Westeros he was a shining hero, to others a black-hearted villain, and in truth he was both. Charismatic and ferociously daring, Daemon was also unpredictable, impulsive and dangerous. He possessed a certain charm and loyalty, fiercely championing those he loved, even as he could be exceedingly proud, ruthless and cruel in pursuit of his goals. Duality earned him as many devoted friends as bitter enemies. Common folk of King's Landing once cheered him as Prince of the City, admiring how he cut down criminals in the streets, yet the High Lords whispered that Daemon might prove a tyrant worse than Maegor the Cruel if he ever sat the Iron Throne. What drove Daemon Targaryen? Above all, ambition and passion. He hungered for the Iron Throne by right of blood and believed in Targaryen supremacy through strength. In his youth, he served on King Viserys' small council, but grew bored of the tedium, preferring action over administration. He found his calling with the City Watch, where he personally drilled and armed the Gold Cloaks, and took a visceral delight in meting out harsh justice to outlaws. Daemon's temperament was mercurial. He could revel in bloodshed one moment and play the gallant prince the next. He was a swaggering warrior and also a rogue who enjoyed the company of flea-bottom's dregs. Every cut-purse and whore in the city knew his face. This endeared him to the lowborn, even as it scandalized lords at court. Sir Otto Hightower, the king's hand, once named Daemon the greatest threat to the realm, branding him an uncontrollable rogue. And yet Viserys Targaryen loved his little brother, forgiving him time and again until their final rift. Daemon's mischievous wit and bold confidence could be endearing, but his volatile pride meant he rarely backed down from a slight. He was fiercely loyal to family in his own way, but equally fiercely jealous of anyone who stood between him and power. Daemon's relationships reveal the extremes of his character. With his brother Viserys, he had a bond of blood and respect, but also resentment. In the early years of Viserys' reign, Daemon assumed he would be named the next heir. After all, the Great Council of 101 AC had chosen Viserys, a male, over a female claimant, so by that precedent Daemon expected to follow his brother. But the king hesitated, troubled by Daemon's unpredictability, and never formally named him heir. This tension came to a head in 105 AC, when Viserys' long-awaited newborn son died shortly after birth. A grieving Viserys was told that Prince Daemon, in his cups at a brothel, had joked about the dead babe as the heir for a day. The remark infuriated the king. Feeling betrayed and disgusted, Viserys stripped Daemon of any claim and banished him from court. Called whether Daemon's jape was truly callous or a misunderstood expression of grief, it irreparably damaged the brothers' trust. From that moment, Viserys turned to his daughter Rhaenyra as heir, and Daemon's bitterness and wounded pride drove many of his subsequent actions. In exile, he brooded over his losses, his chance at the crown, and even the child he might have had, since the king had also quashed Daemon's attempt to set aside his first wife and wed a mistress who carried his unborn child. Cold Startime style, these personal affronts fueled Daemon's rebellious streak and his desire to forge his own legacy by force, as seen in the Stepstones War. Yet Daemon was more than a brute or schemer. He was capable of deep love and loyalty. Perhaps surprisingly, this fiery prince had a tender side he revealed to few. His most defining relationship became the one with Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, his own niece. Over years of friendship and mutual respect, Daemon grew close to Rhaenyra, tutoring her in combat and court intrigue. The whispers of scandal claimed he even seduced her in her youth, a charge that got him exiled yet again. But whatever the truth, their bond was genuine. After years apart, tragedy and war eventually brought them together. By 120 AC, Daemon had lost his second wife, Lady Laena Velaryon, in childbirth, a heartbreak that left him a widower with twin daughters. Rhaenyra too was recently widowed. In their shared grief and long-simmering affection, the two joined in marriage, uniting their claims and their hearts. Daemon became Rhaenyra's prince consort, her staunchest champion in the Dance of the Dragons. Cold back on Joyd. Those who knew him said Daemon truly loved Rhaenyra, and with her he seemed to find renewed purpose. He crowned her queen himself at Dragonstone, placing a Targaryen crown upon her head and proclaiming her Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, while naming himself Protector of the Realm. Cold back on Joyd, this I lo knew self-humiliating. Throughout the civil war, husband and wife stood together against unfathomable losses. Daemon's loyalty to Rhaenyra never wavered in war. He gave all of himself to secure her throne. But to many learned minds, Daemon's life is a lesson on the perils of unchecked ambition. Had he not thirsted for the throne, perhaps the Dance of the Dragons might have been averted. Had he not insisted on vengeance at any cost, perhaps his beloved Rhaenyra might have retained her crown. The tragedy of Daemon's life, some say, is that all his fire and talent ultimately consumed itself, winning personal glory but bringing tremendous loss to his house. Westeros paid for the rogue prince's passions in blood. And yet, despite the tragedy, Respect for Daemon's prowess and courage endures. Even his detractors admit there was a certain terrible greatness in him. The image of Prince Daemon leaping from his dragon to strike down a foe in mid-air is now legendary, a scene scribes and artists return to time and again when recounting the dance. Knights for generations have found inspiration in Daemon's boldness. Even as Septons have warned of his arrogance. In the annals of House Targaryen, Daemon is remembered with a strange mix of awe and sorrow. He was the flame that burns bright and brief, leaving the world both illuminated and scorched by his presence. A heartfelt farewell. In the end, the story of Daemon Targaryen and Caraxes is as poignant as it is dramatic. It is the story of a man who lived and died by the dragon's flame, whose courage soared as high as his flaws ran deep. Daemon's life was a song of ice and fire in itself, full of passion, intrigue, valour, and heartbreak. One can still feel the ache of those who loved him, a brother who longed to trust him, a niece-turned-wife who fought a war beside him, daughters who barely got to know him, and a people who never forgot the prince who patrolled their streets at night on Dragonback. When Daemon fell from the sky locked in mortal combat, the realm lost a brilliant, dangerous star. And yet, what an enduring legend he left behind. The fire of Daemon's spirit did not die with him. It lives on in the pages of chronicles and the verses of minstrels, in the heraldry of House Targaryen and the very blood of the kings that followed. Every time historians speak of the Dance of the Dragons, his name stands out. Defiant and bold, written in charred ink. Every time a reader comes upon his tale, they cannot help but marvel at the man who rode the Red Worm into battle and laughed in the face of death. Daemon's story reminds us of the price of ambition, but also of the value of unwavering courage. He showed the world that a person could shape their own destiny with nothing but a sword, a dragon, and a fearless heart. In his final act, Daemon Targaryen embraced death like an old friend, if only to strike one last blow for honour and vengeance. There is a bittersweet beauty in that. As the waters closed over Prince Daemon and Caraxes, one imagines the dragon's roar echoing in the darkness, a last salute to his rider.